Welcome, and thanks for joining me as we discuss the top 5 reasons for using corrective feedback in your world language classroom. My name is Terry Hammett, and I am an instructional strategist with Wayside Publishing. As a language teacher, I have always wondered about the best ways to give corrective feedback to my students. During this video, we will briefly examine what corrective feedback is, the types that exist, and the many benefits associated with using appropriate corrective feedback with our students. Feedback in general is not advice, it's not praise, and it's not evaluation. Rather, feedback is information about how we are doing in our efforts to reach a goal. That's what renowned educator and author Grant Wiggins says. Feedback refers to comments on students' work, verbal or written, positive or negative. It always focuses on what students have done and not on the students themselves. According to Feedback to Students, the Advanced Guide, feedback equals how did your student do and how could they do better? Providing appropriate oral feedback is one of ACTFL's 6 core practices. In case you haven't heard of these practices, they are powerful tools that advance core learning. ACTFL has determined that all world language teachers should be implementing all 6 of these practices to provide the best pathway to proficiency for their students. According to ACTFL, oral corrective feedback is a tool for mediating learning and language development. There are 6 types of oral corrective feedback. They include explicit correction, when the teacher provides the correct form, or when the teacher simply states that the form the student used was incorrect. Recasts, when the teacher responds to the learner by restating the form correctly without letting the student know that his or her formulation was incorrect. It's very implicit. Clarification requests, when the teacher indicates that there is a problem in comprehensibility or in accuracy and that the student should reformulate. For example, excuse me, I didn't understand. Metalinguistic feedback, when the teacher indicates that there is an error and provides feedback on the type of linguistic error. For example, the teacher might ask, "What did you do for spring break?" And a student might say, "I go to Florida." And the teacher says, "Did you mean to use the present tense here? You need a past tense here." When the teacher repeats the student's utterance up to the point of the error, that is called elicitation. And of course, there's always repetition. When the teacher repeats the student's utterance with rising intonation to indicate that there was an error. For example, "I go to the store." Which type of oral corrective feedback most often leads to uptake for learners? So in other words, we're talking about how learners take the feedback and correct or don't correct their errors. The highest uptake is elicitation, where teachers repeat the student's sentence up to the error, and they give students the time and the indication to self-correct. Recasting is most often used by teachers, but has the least uptake by students. And you might be wondering, when should corrective feedback be given? A study by Shrum and Gleason in 2016 indicates that the type, quantity, and frequency of corrective feedback depends on the objectives, the proficiency level, the anxiety issues, and the personal characteristics of the learner. They state that students benefit most when the feedback they receive focuses on comprehensibility of the message and not just on accuracy of form. So, what are 5 good reasons for using corrective feedback? First, it's important to know that learners actually want to be corrected. According to research, learners prefer to receive feedback rather than have their errors ignored. Secondly, oral corrective feedback can be used as a tool to mediate language learning. Its purpose is not to correct 100% of the errors students make. Instead, it's about helping learners move forward in language performance in an independent and autonomous way. Third, when teachers provide dialogic feedback, in other words, through conversation, the feedback and the scaffolding provided tend to strengthen student learning and performance. So we have a type of feedback loop which includes modeling, feedback, scaffolding, and informal assessment, all as a part of the teaching learning process. A fourth reason is that students are enlisted to participate in their own learning, especially when a dialogic framework is used. Students think about what they are trying to say, think about the language skills they have learned, and then they are coached to co-construct meaning with the teacher or peers in order to create comprehensible and more accurate output. Lastly, teachers who use oral corrective feedback are prompted to engage in self-reflection about ways to improve their corrective feedback loop with students. So, in summary, the top 5 reasons for using corrective feedback are: learners want to receive corrective feedback. Corrective feedback can be a tool to mediate learning. Learning and informal assessment become integrated. Students take part in their own learning, and teachers are reminded to engage in self-reflection. If you find this topic interesting and you would like to learn more, check out our Wayside video, Assessment and Feedback That Lead to Continued Learning. For further reading on this topic, check out the sources for this video. Thanks. Have a good evening.